All right, welcome to the SIG Cloud Provider meeting. It is July 6th. Please be mindful of the CNCF Code of Conduct, and we'll go ahead and get started. Add yourself to the agenda or the attending list, and please add any agenda items as well as sub-project updates if you have any. We will start with a bug triage. All right, we have spoken about this one before.
Yeah, I read down that one again and I thought, we talked about this before and maybe this one is just this is not getting fixed in tree. I think that's the most recent thing you said, Nick.
Yeah. Apparently I attempted to triage accepted and then, I think it's because it's SIG node as well. So we're kind of just waiting for SIG node to decide what to do with it, perhaps. So makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. We haven't really heard back. So I mentioned that it was something that could be optimized and asked, is it worth spending effort? Tell me more about what is going on. And the person never responded. So it doesn't seem like it's burning them right now, or else they'd probably be more responsive. So I guess we can just kind of sit on it. I don't know what to do though, since it's half triage accepted. Do we have a procedure here?
So, sorry, quick question, Nick.
Yeah.
Is this something that remains a problem once cloud provider extraction is done?
Yeah. So as the cloud provider is right now, no, it shouldn't be a problem, or at least it's not guaranteed to be / likely is not, because this is for it's basically hitting the metadata endpoint to get addresses, which, as you know, is done by the cloud node controller. So there's a chance that we do something like Azure does and re-architect it to put some daemon set on the node, but as of right now, likely won't be a problem.
So my suggestion, and you are welcome to do what you want with it, but my suggestion would be to be a bit more explicit and actually say, we believe this problem will go away in a few releases once cloud provider extraction is completed. You shouldn't face this problem if you're using the external, the AWS distribution found in Kubernetes SIG /cloud provider -AWS. And as such, unless there's an imminent need, we don't plan on fixing this in tree.
Yeah, I'm just going to say something similar, given this will don't know how to spell that word. Unless there's some imminent need, please feel free. Okay. Cool. That was easy. I think we're done with triage. So I'll go through sub-projects. I don't have anything for AWS, and I don't think Kishore is on. Okay, so let's go to Azure.
Hey, so the very cool issue that Nick opened back in May about cleaning up test failures, we did some work on, and I put a link to the few that we still have that we need to diagnose and clean up. But that's thank you for leading the charge on that, and we're gonna keep getting that that test grid to green.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, we need to do some work on that as well. Cool. Anything else?
No, nothing else.
GCP?
As a part of updating repository to 1.24 version, which is something that should happen soon, I have updated documentation about bumping process. We added some additional scripts that should help with the process, so it will not be so problematic next time. We'll be handling this issue. That's all.
Cool. Thank you. All right. And then extraction migration. Walter, did you add this one?
I did. I need to actually fix that PR, but I have been promising to create that PR for a while, so I went ahead and actually created it. It's essentially adding a. So let me step back. Sorry. So there are two feature flags that we have to test what happens when you explicitly have cloud provider set to external, or to force you to show what happens when you have it set to external. And right now we have nothing in test grid or anywhere else that is actually testing what happens on all the tests in KK when those feature flags are turned off. So in-tree plugin, that seems wrong. Okay, let me go back. It's disable cloud provider. I thought there was a different name. All right, anyway.
What about disable credential providers?
Yeah, I apparently had a copy and paste error. I needed to fix it anyway. You are correct. Yes, the second one should be disable credential provider.
Okay,
But the idea is we will shortly have a test grid that will actually show us all of the tests that should be failing under that circumstance. So hopefully I'll have that running this week, and we will see just how many tests are failing. Just so we're very clear about what the expectations are. It's not necessarily that all the tests have to be fixed. The first thing we need to do is get that list of tests and triage them. So some of those tests will probably need to be moved to sort of become distro level tests. So whether it's cloud provider AWS, cloud provider GCP, cloud provider Azure, cloud provider Alibaba, whatever, that's fine. Some of the tests we may decide we just don't need. And the rest of the tests will have to be rewritten so that they don't depend on the cloud provider. As far as I can see, those are essentially our three options. All those tests pass today, but they all pass with the cloud providers. So presumably if turning cloud provider off fails, then it's, yes, very strong confidence. It is because we turn them off, and so we need to work out what to do.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, cool. I'll definitely follow that one. So once we have the list of failed tests, like what is our, how are we gonna get action based on that list or get people to look at it?
So my general feeling is that we as a SIG will need to send out a mail that with the list of tests explaining the problem. And my thought is we'll start by sending it to SIG release and SIG architecture. And we need to basically get an agreement on next steps. My suggestion on the next steps is going to be that we send a shortened version of those test lists to the owning SIGs. So we'll go to SIG node and say, okay, here are the 16 tests you have that SIG node that are currently depending on cloud provider. Our suggestion would be one of these three things. You're welcome to come up with something we missed. But how would you like them dealt with? And that it's got to be an agreement from the owning SIG for each test on how they want them dealt with. This is then going to dovetail back to SIG release, assuming that some people want to run at the distro level, because right now we really, and maybe SIG testing, because right now there is practically no way to run tests at the distro level based on an upcoming KK release, right? So, and just to be clear what I mean by that, if we go back to Jacob's last note on the changes that Jacob's making, he's talking about a set of scripts that will allow his team to automatically update to 124 now. And that's great for that distro, but it sort of shows you how far behind I think GCP, and in practice, my guess is every one of the other cloud provider distros is on what I'm going to call the kernel, which is the code that's actually in KK. And so if what we're trying to do is track whether or not a recent KK change has broken some cloud provider dependency for testing, we need to be able to almost immediately run the latest KK code in a distribution. And that's going to require changes to the release channels to actually be able to run those tests with a build that's already a build of Azure vSphere, GCP, AWS that with the latest, and I do mean latest version of the KK code. Did that answer the question, Nick?
I think so, yeah. So yeah, I'm just trying to take some notes here on what we need to do. So I get that we need to go to SIGs with failing tests and kind of ask how they want to proceed with those. But in the beginning, you mentioned SIG architecture and SIG release, I think. And did you have like specific questions that need to be resolved talking to them, or?
Well, I think anything that crosses SIG boundaries, we're basically going to need SIG architecture involved. And I think if we're talking about needing to make changes to the release channel to be able to do things like provide KK, pre-released KK images that can be consumed by the distros, and then mechanisms to then reabsorb test results, we're probably going to need SIG releases help.
Actually, that's raising interesting questions. I have a question. When you say latest and like, we're talking about a point in time, like the actual point release, or are you talking about pre-release? You're
I'm
talking about
definitely talking
continuous, you say immediate, you mean continuous? I feel like we
yeah,
should
I mean
clarify that.
continuous.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Or varying definitions of continuous, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
it's once every 4 hours, I'm fine with that. But yeah, I mean, it is some definition of continuous.
Yeah, I almost feel like we want a view and test grid that tells us at any given moment where we're at with this then. Is that fair to say, if we don't have that already?
Yeah, I think that is very fair to say. I mean, we got to remember wherever we end up, we're a step down from where we are today. Where we are today with these tests is that they are pre-push, right? So if I make a PR and I submit it, it hasn't been, all these tests have been run before it even gets merged into the code base. Now we're kind of saying, well, we probably can't do that, so it'll probably merge, but at least we'd like some signal that it broke something in a reasonable time frame, even if that's just within a day, right? So that's already a fairly substantial step down from where we are today. And you know, if it's not continuous, then I'm trying to imagine what it would be like if at the end of a release we discover all the things that have been broken on the cloud providers in the last 3 or 4 months, and that sounds pretty horrific. Yeah.
That's terrifying. Let's not do that. Let's do what you're saying instead.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to summarize that, but basically we want as good as we can get feedback, test feedback, test results, whatever we want to call it, from distros. I'll just say test results from distros in place of the pre-push testing that happens today, which is better in the sense that we get, you know, like clear, we know when we break something, and we need to take our plan to SIG architecture and SIG release to kind of solve that problem. All right. Do we have a timeline on that? Like we're pretty close to getting this list of failing tests. So I guess we'll be kind of, I guess, talking about this next meeting, wherever we
We'll
are.
be talking about it next meeting, and hope once I have that list, I was hoping to put together sort of a rough draft of the email. So I'm happy at that point to share it with the SIG.
Cool. All right. All right. We have a couple items on the agenda. Looks like Bridget owns both of them, so go ahead, Bridget.
Oh, yeah, I just added a couple based on the things we were actually talking about when we went through the provider updates. If people are wondering what link I was using to get to all of the, sorry, cat, what I was using to get to the list of tests that we were in the process of fixing, it was that great issue that Nick had opened. I think that especially if you were only looking at the things that needed triage, maybe if you haven't looked at this one lately, just go back, take a look. He has links to all of the awesome lists that you can go and find out what your current failing tests are. And we had already worked through a couple of them, and I think we should, while we have, you know, a moment, work on some more of them. So yeah, it's pretty easy to just, you know, search for your provider in there and be like, hey, look at that, or JQ it out, however you prefer.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to see? Let's see. Let's look at Google GCP, no, GCE. Okay.
You can just kind of see which ones apply to you. If you look for Azure, there's like 5 of them, you know.
Azure, yeah. Cool.
I
Yeah,
just
we
kind
have
of gives you
a
a
couple.
quick cheat sheet of what to go look at now.
Awesome. Thanks for that link. And then
Yeah,
cherry pick
and
deadline
then
this week.
I actually just went over on the release management channel on Kubernetes Slack to remind the release team that, hey, we needed to get a couple of our cherry picks in. I think it's one of those things where if I forget to go and remind people to review our cherry picks and get them in, sometimes they don't get in, and then you have to wait another whole cycle. And every once in a while, it ends up being, oh, I have cherry picks for something that literally isn't getting cherry picks anymore because it took that long. And so I feel like that's kind of a, from our point of view, for anything that we're trying to get into the entry, reminder to go look and see if you have any that you need to get in, because
Mhm.
now is your moment if you would like to get them in this time.
That's a really good reminder.
I don't know if anyone else needs that info, but I needed it, so I figure I would give it to everyone.
Yeah, might as well. Yeah, I think it's worth just looking to see if you have anything that needs to be cherry picked.
Oh yeah, especially one of the things I notice sometimes is, you know how when you're reviewing all the things that you've been getting in lately, and then somebody is like, oh yeah, we should cherry pick that. We should is not actionable or clickable. So like, go make sure you actually cherry picked the things you intended, because
Yeah,
otherwise,
it's super
yeah.
easy to just forget to do that. Cool.
Awesome. And when we're done with extraction, we'll have less of this to worry about, but yeah, no.
Yeah, seriously. All right. Well, I think that wraps up the agenda for today. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to quickly chat about before we drop? Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, folks.